Long, long ago, the story of humanity began with endless wandering. People read the colors of the sky, felt the direction of the wind, and followed the signs of nature. They watched the shape of the clouds to guess where the rain would fall, and they studied tiny marks on the ground to track the animals they hunted. But nature was not always generous. Hunting failed more often than it succeeded, and fruits disappeared as soon as the season changed. Whenever food ran out, people had no choice but to move again. Children, adults, and the elderly all walked with tired bodies toward a new land. At night, they sat close around a fire, sharing warmth to survive the cold. The fire was small and weak, but it was their only friend in the darkness. When morning came, they stood once again on an unfamiliar path. The road was always rough, sometimes dangerous, and it never seemed to end. Their lives were full of uncertainty, and hunger followed them like a shadow. No one knew when they would finally rest. They simply kept walking, because that was the only way to stay alive. This was how humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Then one day, a very small change began to reshape the future of humanity. Someone noticed a seed that had fallen on the ground had grown into a plant. The plant was bigger and richer than the food they usually found, and several similar plants were growing nearby. In that moment, people imagined something new. What if we don't have to follow food anymore? What if this little seed can grow by itself? And what if we can grow it on purpose? This idea was not just a simple discovery. It was the first time humans tried to understand nature and control it instead of only chasing it. People began to watch how seeds grew. They learned which type of soil was better, how much rain was needed, and which seasons were right for planting. They didn't write these things down, but they remembered them with their bodies and their experience. A tiny sprout became the seed of a huge revolution. This small moment was the first step that changed humans. From followers of nature into guides of nature. People started gathering more seeds and planting them in the ground. They celebrated when it rained, and during dry seasons, they worked together to bring water. They watched how fast plants grew and learned the rhythm of the seasons. They also began to tame animals, finding ways to keep a steady supply of food. Through this, humans learned something new: waiting. Seeds needed time to grow, and during that time, people had to stay in one place. Small shelters appeared, and those shelters slowly turned into stronger houses. People worked together and formed villages. Children grew up in the same place, and adults no longer had to prepare for constant travel. For the first time, the idea of a home was born. Staying in one place was not just about resting. People began to divide land, share roles, and create rules. Some planted seeds, some carried water, and others took care of animals. These small villages grew larger, and people shared knowledge and built more complex societies. This was also the moment when humans began to understand time. They planned for tomorrow, prepared for the next season, and imagined a future that did not yet exist. When food became stable, life changed completely. People no longer worried about surviving each day, and that free time allowed new ideas to grow. They made better tools, shaped stones into farming equipment, and made pottery to store food. Villages grew into small towns, and people shared skills and thoughts, creating more organized communities. Then one day, humans began to record their knowledge. How to farm, how the seasons changed, and the stories of their villages. These records slowly became writing, and writing became culture, art, religion, and law. People created gods, held rituals, and searched for meaning in the world around them. Towns grew into cities, and people worked together to build great civilizations. All of this began from a single seed. Agriculture was not just a technique. It was the power that allowed humans to design their own future. The agricultural revolution was not only about growing food. It was the moment humans became active creators of their world. Leaving the wandering life and settling down was not simply about comfort. It meant imagining tomorrow. It meant believing that the seed planted today would grow into something greater later. This changed the hearts of people. While caring for the land, they learned to care for each other. Homes became places of memory, and villages became places where dreams were shared. This change eventually created the flow of civilization. Cities rose, art was born, and religion and philosophy appeared. Humans began to ask who they were and where they were going. Agriculture became the soil from which all culture and knowledge grew. When we think about it, everything began with a tiny seed. A small grain that fell to the ground, and one curious person who stopped to look at it. That small moment changed the future of humanity and built the foundation of the world we live in today. We are still living on the legacy of that seed. The lights of our cities, the food we eat, the languages we speak, and the cultures we share. All are part of the long journey that began with the agricultural revolution. This revolution was not just a past event. It was the first promise humans made together to build a better world. To work the land, plant seeds, help one another, and dream of the future. Because of that promise, humanity reached the civilization we know today. And that journey continues even now. Every time we create new technology, every time we imagine a new society, we return to the same question that the first seed once asked us. How can we create a better tomorrow?